Welcome to another exciting episode from Marvelous Videos. I'm your host Tia Ayer. Judge Dredd vs. Predator. The Battle of Titans explored. The Earth of the 22nd century was largely apocalyptic and dystopian. What remained of the global population was crammed into a few small cities, including Mega City 1, the concrete jungle that housed more than 400 million people. Naturally, a city with such a high population density would become a hell ravaged by crime and violence, and tensions are almost always on a short fuse. And a police force of judges served as the judge, jury, and sometimes the executioner. The most famous among them was Judge Dredd, who proclaimed himself to be the law. But when a predator reached Mega City 1, it targets the judges as worthy prey. Judge Dredd will have to use every weapon in his arsenal to fight this apex hunter. But that's not all. Not before long, we will have to face a massive xenomorph infestation in Mega City 1. That was the doing of a mad geneticist and the robotic leader of an apocalyptic death cult. In this video, we will explore all of Judge Dredd's encounters from the comics, and let me assure you that it is going to be thrilling. Let's begin, shall we? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The first meeting of Dredd with Yautjas explored. Number 1. Round 1 in Mega City 1. The first issue of Predator vs. Judge Dredd begins in the Cursed Earth, or the desolate radiation-rich lands where no one really lives. We find a man named Gomer and his robot Ben, who are trying to fix their truck. Gomer watches a streak of light in the sky and figures it's a shooting star. However, Ben is quick to notice that the streak was too huge to be a star and that there was no sound of impact. The two of them went closer to the celestial body to investigate and found that it was a spaceship that was drilling its way underground. It's not before too long that the Predator destroys Ben and kills Gomer. The scene then shifts to Mega City 1, where the judges intervened a gang war and dispensed instant justice to the criminals. The important thing to note here is that the judges are essentially a police force of Mega City 1, but they have got the powers of a jury, judge, and executioner. They do not wait for the criminals to receive their punishments through a formal trial and declare the sentence on the spot. Soon, all the judges receive a report of another gang war between the Surf Gang and the Juve Gang. Judges Sola, Rourke, and Tolk respond immediately and corner the perps in a dead end. But unbeknownst to them, they were being watched by the Predator, who had previously slaughtered Ben and Gomer. He now shot Rourke and killed the veteran judge, but no one could see anything. In the aftermath, Sola also got injured, but she was smart enough to turn on her infrared and find the apex predator. Fortunately for the humans, Judge Dredd arrived at the scene with guns blazing and awesomeness radiating, who fell through the glass door of a warehouse. Judge Dredd came to check on his colleague, and after ensuring that she was okay, he went after the predator. Tolk warned Dredd, "Don't go in there. That thing might still be alive." But Dredd was not a weakling. He was the best of the best and replied to Tolk, "That's why I'm going in." He entered the warehouse with caution and found the predator's green blood on the floor. Following the trail of blood, he inched closer to the predator, who attacked Dredd with his combi stick and impaled him on his shoulder. Dredd was a strong man, but he was only a human, and the predator was getting to the better of him. Fortunately for him, the other judges arrived at the warehouse and took control of the situation, forcing the predator to flee with its life. The following morning, Dredd woke up from his slumber and visited Sola to inquire about the predator's fate. She told him that the thing escaped, but there has been 2 more attacks in which Judge Phillips and Coach had been killed, while Coach's spine and head were missing. At the Grand Hall of Justice, or the headquarters of the judges, they managed to figure out the thing that had been killing the judges. It was a predator from another world, and while high-tech gadgets and camouflage were their strengths, their only possible weakness was the Earth's atmosphere, which they could not bear for too long. Meanwhile, Side Judge Schaefer, a telepath, was called in to track the predator down before it could do further damage. Schaefer was the great-great-granddaughter of Dutch Schaefer himself, the only survivor of the predator onslaught in the first Predator film. She tells Dredd more about the predators, how they are beings that live to hunt worthy prey and take trophies, but are known to have let go of unarmed, weak, and pregnant prey. Dredd realized that the judges of Mega City 1 were the exact match that the predator considered worthy prey. Number 2. Round 2. The second issue starts with 2 burglars trespassing into an abandoned property. They sneak into the dilapidated building hoping to find valuables or anything rare, and trust me, the two were about to find their most interesting discovery yet. Yet one of them was scared of finding a judge around the corner, and the one's fear did come true, albeit in part, when they found the severed head and spine of one of the judges. As you may have guessed, the Predator was using this abandoned structure as his hideout and his makeshift base for operations. After killing the judges, he would go back to his lair and wait till the heat on him had cooled off. Nevertheless, the Predator had been injured earlier and was surprised by the two burglars, but most importantly, they were unarmed, and predators do not hunt unarmed prey. These were probably the reasons why they managed to escape just in time to meet a mini army of judges outside. They stormed into the building and used as many of their concussion grenades as they could, but failed to find the Predator, who had already fled the scene after sensing mortal danger. The judges found traces of Predator blood, which they took along with them. Meanwhile, Judge Dredd ordered a full sweep of a large shopping complex called Chopra, and the Predator was not far behind. The blood sample was given to Side Judge Schaefer, who tried to build a connection with the Predator, but building such connections was not something like turning on a switch. It took time, and more importantly, the subject should be willing to be found. Back at Chopra, the Predator killed another judge who was apprehending a suspect. The other judges opened fire at the beast, but the Predator was more than a match for nature's apex hunter. When he made a climb to the roof, two more judges followed and did not see a happy ending. Yet again, Judge Dredd lost the Predator to the dense concrete jungle he strived to save. Soon, Dredd received another report of the Predator's attack, and another judge had been murdered. It was evident to everyone that the entire justice system was being targeted, and the finest of Mega City 1 were proving to be a little more than defenseless before the alien. But before the Predator could be killed, he had to be tracked down, and tracking down a practically invisible killer was not going to be an easy job, even for Judge Dredd. Naturally, he went back to Schaefer for help, but even she was not able to give him any solid leads. Dredd had lost several men in the past few hours, and he blamed himself for these deaths, because he was not able to take the Predator out when the first two encountered each other. Naturally, he took out his frustrations on Schaefer, telling her how incompetent she was. But Schaefer was Dutch's relative, and she would not take such baseless insults. She stormed out of the building, and on her way back home, she was driving, while looking at the test tube containing Predator's blood. Strangely, a small accident spilled some of the blood on her wrist, which she licked off, and in that moment, she formed a psychic connection with the Predator. Probably things were going to be better from now on for the humans. Number 3. Round 3. In the third issue, Schaefer had another vision, courtesy of her psionic link with the Predator, which was magnified and enhanced by the Predator's own lifeblood. Judge Dredd sends in a hover unit to have Schaefer picked up, while he heads out with an assault squad to the Undercity Gate to launch a final attack on the judge-killing alien. And as for Schaefer's link with the Predator's mind, he could sense that someone was intruding on it, someone who could see where he was. It was not long before he could also sense that the end was close, that the net was closing in on him. He was torturing a judge named Frank Breen, but he was not quite into it. His mind was plagued by various thoughts, and it was in pain. On the other hand, Schaefer could feel his pain. By now, Judge Breen had had enough of it with the Predator and wanted his life to end. He quite literally begged the Predator to shoot him, but the Predator sensed something was off. Interestingly, the hunter sensed the booby trap that lay hidden in Judge Breen's gun, but Judge Dredd was hot on the Predator's trail and brought with him 2 Mark 7 war droids who were armed with napalm, laser cannons, and automatic trackers. By the looks of them, they seemed to be the ultimate arsenal at Judge Dredd's disposal. By now, Schaefer had reached ground zero and once again iterated that the Predator was dying, but the cause of his condition was not the assaults that he had suffered at the hands of the judges. It was something else. Judge Dredd and the others slowly closed in on the Predator, but the beast with an iron determination had already sensed the arrival of the human intruders. Just as it attacked, it got shot at and charged with napalm. But it wasn't dead, not yet. Judge Dredd did not want any more casualties and went in along with the 2 droids, but the Predator shot down one of the droids and destroyed the napalm tank of the other. The result blast forced Schaefer to contribute to the fight one way or another. She had previously shown interest in communicating with the Predator, but Dredd and the others had not given any heed to her. Now that Dredd was in the line of danger, she neither had a choice nor anyone to stop her. Meanwhile, Judge Dredd and the Predator faced each other in a single combat, and used everything at their disposal to slay each other, including the raw power of their mighty fists. But Schaefer intervened, offering to communicate with the hunter. And in the end, the predator fired Judge Dredd's gun, and the weapon served as a self-destruct device. Because no one apart from the gun's owner could fire it without causing self-harm, Judge Dredd did not waste a moment sticking a knife through the alien hunter's heart, killing him once and for all. Schaefer tells Dredd that the predator knew that the gun was booby-trapped, and yet it fired because that was the only way to end his life, and the immense pain he was suffering from that made him want to die. So the predator came to Mega City 1, not because it wanted a good hunt, but because it wanted freedom from its pain, and that's something only Judge Dredd could have given him. After facing the predator firsthand, Judge Dredd faced one of the greatest enemies ever. However, the two of them were similar in many respects. Both of them had a singleness of a purpose and a readiness to take on impossible odds. Furthermore, they shared an iron determination and unbending will. Nevertheless, Judge Dredd's tryst with the predators had not ended yet, as he was about to face a force far deadlier than the predators, and this new enemy did not play by any rules or codes of honor. Yautja and judges form a team to kill a bigger threat, xenomorphs. Number 1. Predator vs. Judge Dredd vs. Alien Splice and Dice Issue 1. The first issue of this 4-issue series majorly introduces the newer readers to the predators, the xenomorphs, and Judge Dredd. However, since we did not need such details anymore, I'll just go on with the story that the first issue contains. So, we start off in a jungle on Earth where a predator is being hunted by others. Well, it is quite a rare sight for a predator to become the prey, but it was happening nonetheless. But who are these hunters? Well, from the outlook, they seem to be a humanoid animal such as rhinos, bears, raccoons, gorillas, etc. It turns out that these humanoids have anything but animalistic brains and behave much like any human would. Not only do they wear armor, but they also wield human weapons. But the question remains, who created them? Well, after most of the world became cursed with the nuclear catastrophe, small hamlets came up as cities where people lived in extremely dire situations. However, several powerful and resourceful men started taking advantage of the situation, and one of them was Dr. Niels Reinstadt, who called himself the Genesis Supreme. Clearly, the man has issues, which are reflected in the way that he talks about his creation, saying, "I am a man of science, of course. It was I who spliced their DNA to make them into something new and wonderful. It was my mind, my genius." So it was Dr. Reinstadt on whose orders the humanoids were working. But he had done a tremendous job on them, because they not only hunted the predator and nearly killed it, but brought him before Reinstadt so that he could carry out one of his little science experiments on the predator. Meanwhile, Judge Dredd, the peacekeeper of Mega City 1, was after a robotic terrorist who was basically a psychotic messiah of violent cultists. But Archbishop Emoji fled into the Alabama morass and wild swamp and jungles, and the base of operations of Reinstadt. Naturally, Judge Dredd went after Archbishop Emoji, and Reinstadt was updated about the trespassers by his army of animal humanoids, but Reinstadt knew about them already. However, he was more interested in some other trespassers, and these were not humans. It turns out the 4 predators had also reached the Alabama morass, but why did they come here? Were they with the abducted predator, or were they here for another ritualistic hunt? Well, let's find that out in the next issue. Number 2, Predator vs. Judge Dredd vs. Alien Splice and Dice, Issue 2. So as it happens, the predators were returning from one of their hunts on a hostile planet afar. But while cruising through the vicinity of Earth, they intercepted a distress signal and landed on the blue planet. If you have a passerby's knowledge of predators, you'd know that they are known for their expert tracking skills, apart from their hunting skills. Naturally, tracing the source of the distress signal was not going to be difficult for them. They reached the swampy overgrowth located within a vast radioactive wasteland in the northern hemisphere. They figured out what had happened there. One of their own had been pursued and hunted, but they were not ready yet to believe that he was dead, and even if he was, he had to be avenged. But the footprints of various animals in the vicinity and tracks of human vehicles confused the predators. They had never seen so many different animals working together to hunt one single prey. It was just against nature's law. But you and I understand, well, what was going on, don't we? Meanwhile, Judge Dredd was hot on Archbishop Emoji's trail, and trust me, it was no laugh-out-loud matter. Judge Dredd warned the robotic cult leader, but to no avail. As the psychotic robot opened fire, detritus from his gun, or the empty shells fell on the ground, and he even managed to hurt one of the judges. Later, the predators found these empty shells and human blood on one of the trees, but Judge Dredd's vocabulary did not contain the words escaped convict, and he used his gun Lawgiver to fire some armor-piercing rounds on the robotic terrorists. And once Archbishop Emoji was hurt enough, Dredd used Lawgiver's high explosives to end the cyber menace. However, the judges and the Archbishop were not alone in the swamps. Psy Judge Anderson felt something strange. She sensed way too many psychic energies coming from all around them. Pretty soon, animals in the shape of humans charged at them from all corners and from treetops. Meanwhile, the predators could not understand what the hell it was when they found what was remained of the Archbishop. Their leader, Bosu, had been to Earth on one of his previous hunts, but even he could not deduce what was happening. Anyway, the raccoon man landed on a massive punch on one of the judges, whose tooth fell off. Judge Dredd and Psy Judge Anderson could not hold them off for long, and eventually all of them were taken by Reinstadt's creatures. When the predators reached the battleground, they found the same animal tracks and deduced that the same fate as their comrade and had fallen unto the humans. Although they did not know the real fate of their comrade, they knew that they were on the right track. Reinstadt had ordered his hybrids to keep a strict tab on the predators, but the hybrids failed to execute Reinstadt's command. Nevertheless, the judges woke up from their slumber and were greeted by Reinstadt, who had some really nefarious plans for each of the judges. Previously, Reinstadt had gotten a hold of a xenomorph skull and extracted its DNA to infuse with humans, but the end result was largely unstable. However, now that he had several subjects, he placed a facehugger on one of the judges and injected another with the xenomorph's DNA. Furthermore, a predalien chestburster came out of the captured predator because he had previously been impregnated. Things had clearly gotten out of hand for Judge Dredd, so much so that the lady side judge with him was taken away by Reinstadt so that she could serve as a host for a royal chestburster, while Judge Dredd was left in the compartment with the newly formed xenomorphs, one of which was a predalien. Probably the only joy one could find in all of this misery came from the fact that the other 4 predators had reached Reinstadt's facility, guns blazing and putting up a good fight to try and get their friend back. Number 3. Predator vs. Judge Dredd vs. Alien Splice and Dice, Issue 3. Meanwhile, Archbishop Emoji had not truly been destroyed by Judge Dredd because the hybrid Animans had attacked the judges. Before we go forward, let's talk about this leader of an apocalyptic death cult who told his followers there was a supreme being who was a programmer whose divine book of codes only emojis could understand. However, this was 100% crap and a story concocted so that he could destroy the human race. Why, you ask? Well, simply because he hated humans. Nevertheless, the emoji saw the hybrid men. He could not comprehend what they were, and he started to believe in the story he once invented to execute his elaborate plan. Naturally, now he was filled with faith in a supreme being rather than the hate for humans, and faith is as powerful as a force as any. But Judge Dredd was still stuck in the lab with ferocious killing machines, whose primary instinct was killing to survive. Yet Dredd made Reinstadt an offer, his release in return for Reinstadt's life, although in jail. Reinstadt was clearly shocked at the blatant guts that Dredd was displaying, and honestly, it was a bit too much to be realistic. But then, Judge Dredd was Judge Dredd, and one does not gain such a reputation by not giving up to one's words. On the other hand, the 4 predators were turning the place outside Reinstadt's lab into a garden of cadavers. Back at the lab, things were going to get ugly for Judge Dredd, but Side Judge Anderson built a psychic connection with Judge McCrary, who had been injected with xenomorph DNA. Although his transformation was nearly complete, Anderson appealed to whatever human part remained in him and implored him to follow his duties as a judge. Surprisingly, Anderson's effort bore fruit, and the mutated McCrary started fighting the predalien, knocking the abomination out. As for McCrary, Anderson was losing control of his mind because the human in it was fading away fast. However, she did manage to use the mutated McCrary to free Judge Dredd, who took the face-hugged Judge Gilligan with him and escaped the lab only to come out and witness a most horrific sight. The predators had left their signature all around the place in the form of skinned and mutilated bodies. Judge Dredd wished to take Judge Gilligan back to Mega City 1, hoping that he'd be cured, oblivious to the fact that Judge Gilligan was a lost cause. But his misery was ended quickly when a predator killed Gilligan while he was still in Judge Dredd's arms. a dreadful Judge Dredd attacked the Predator, but the fight was broken off by Side Judge Anderson, who revealed that the Predators not only freed her, but were in fact on the right side. She explains how Judge Gilligan was already doomed and how the xenomorph reproduction works. When Anderson explains, these creatures, they call themselves Yautja. They live for this kind of stuff. They are hunters. Judge Dredd replied, "Good, let's hunt." Judge Dredd realized that the enemy of an enemy is a friend, and he just made some really powerful friends who wanted the xenomorph super dead. By now, the xenomorphs from the lab had escaped into the dark and wet swamps, and if predators were the galaxy's apex hunters, the xenomorphs were its apex killers. It was not before long that the transformed McCrary attacked one of the predators, and naturally, the Predillion was not far behind. A fierce battle ensued between the two opposing sides, and each of these sides were equally ferocious, almost as if one was an unstoppable force while the other an immovable object. However, a larger terror loomed in the sky in the form of Reinstadt, who had taken over the Predator ship and used his animal men as hosts of the facehuggers that the Predator ship was carrying. And as for the pilot of the ship, it was none other than the Archbishop Emoji. Interestingly, Reinstadt wanted to deliver apocalypse, while Emoji wanted to deliver salvation and purification because of his renowned faith. However, their modus operandi was going to be the very same, unleashing the xenomorphs on Mega City 1. Number 4. Predator vs. Judge Dredd vs. Alien Splice and Dice, Issue 4. Dredd, Anderson, and the Predators fixed the ship of the abducted Predator, who had crash-landed in the Alabama morass before being taken hostage by Reinstadt's animal men. However, when they did reach Mega City 1, they were a genocide too late. Reinstadt had already unleashed the xenomorphs, who massacred several of Emoji's followers. An entire part of the city was slaughtered within hours. However, when Dredd sought permission to land his alien aircraft in Mega City 1, he was refused because he was flying an unauthorized craft and carrying two creatures that Control could not recognize. Dredd kept warning about the glorious consequences of not paying heed to these extraterrestrial creatures, but you know how stiff red tape can get. Dredd realized that they were on their very own, and as the four of them started tracking the xenomorphs, they kept finding piles of bodies. But the Predators noted that there was more blood than there were bodies present on the scene. So the question that arose was, what happened to the other bodies? Meanwhile, different kind of xenomorphs started unleashing their wrath on Mega City 1 and its residents. From buffalo xenomorphs to elephant xenomorphs, there was definitely something for everyone's fancy. The xenohunters soon realized that one of the acid-blooded beasts was trying to abduct a civilian. They followed the creature and reached an abandoned building where they found the missing civilians, albeit not in the state as they had expected. They had been cocooned to be impregnated by the numerous facehuggers, which came out of the ovomorphs that the xenomorph's queen was laying. Interestingly, the queen xenomorph was made from none other than Reinstadt, the splice doctor, but Dredd and the others destroyed the lair full of facehuggers and ovomorphs before destroying the xenomorph queen. And the Predators left the Earth after bidding their farewell to Dredd, whom they called an honorable hunter and worthy opponent. But Judge Dredd warned them against returning to Earth because that would be against the law. And he was the law. Well, that brings us to an end of this amazing story concerning the mighty Judge Dredd and the two most fearsome killers in the entire galaxy. It's quite evident that Judge Dredd's skill and expertise makes him worthy of featuring in a crossover comic of the Alien vs. Predator universe. I mean, as someone who explores things for Marvelous videos, I have read a lot of AVP comics, but only a few have been as engaging as this. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.